Welcome, everyone, to episode 106 of the Chris Parrish podcast. My name is Chris Parrish, but you're not always looking at me because I know it. You're like, we see you every week. Who the hell is the other guy? And that is RBV from Hamin Media Group. As you saw, he was live with the crew on Turnbuckle Talk this past Tuesday, which, by the way, you can catch a part of Turnbuckle Studios and the Turnbuckle Affiliation Program, which brings me to my point. I got to get that house cleaning out right off the bat. That is a house rule. So if you want to go and check out Beercade YEG, the proud sponsor of the Chris Parrish podcast, and if you're a fan of checking out AEW pay-per-views or WWE PLEs, and you're in the Edmonton, Alberta area, go check out Beercade YEG 10544 82nd app, as you can check out all of that free showings, great food, video games, arcade games, all that good stuff, plus a great ass time. And then also make sure you're going to turnbucklestudios.org to check out everything Turnbuckle Affiliation Program. But enough about the house cleaning. That's just a formality. RBV, how are you doing?
Mr. Parrish, beyond pumped to be here, brother. Yeah, I had so much fun. You mentioned I was with the crew live on Tuesday for the mothership, the flagship show, Turnbuckle Talk. I had so much fun. I said, you know what? I got to run it back, and we got to get set up, get hyped up. Little hashtag Sunday Fun Day pro wrestling shenanigans, and I came pumped. I came ready this time. You know, you got that energy drink flowing, but in honor of the boss man here at Turnbuckle Studios, Mr. Carl Carefoot, I got my Dr. Pepper today.
Oh, okay.
So I am representing, but brother, I am looking forward to this. A casual, kicking back Sundays the way they're supposed to be, just in depth conversation about something that we're both just so passionate about. And of course, that's what's bringing us all together with our viewers, those in the chat. Hashtag professional wrestling.
Yeah, that's right. And you know, that's what I love. Waking up Sunday morning. Yes, I wake up, I see my beautiful baby boy. I get on here, have an energy drink, I get all repped up, only to watch my Saints probably tear my heart out, but that's okay. That is why we tune in, just like we tune in to all of our wrestling content that makes us feel every single emotion that you know, and even some you don't. Why? Because that's what pro wrestling does. And if you're living under a Dwayne Johnson, you wouldn't have known that NXT DeadLine was just last night, and it, in my eyes, was a great show with some great moments there. We saw 2 Iron Survivor matches where we saw the Evolve Women's Champion Kendall Gray and Javon Evans both become Iron Survivor winners. We saw a new NXT champion in Oba Femi. We saw Tatum Paxley lose to Izzy Dane as Sean Spears ripped the doll's head out. So rude, but it happened. We also saw the return of Tony D'Angelo, and we also saw Ethan Page defeat Mr. Iguana in a North American title match. RBV, did you catch DeadLine? And if so, what were your opinions on that show?
Absolutely didn't know we were going to be talking about that, but outside of that, you know, NXT, I am a regular viewer. It is one of my weeklies Tuesday night where I'm going to be checking that out. Then also love over on, you know, my platform, the Hamin Media Group. Love our Next Level podcast with Big Ray and the vet that break that down each and every Wednesday morning. But yeah, I thought this was a great showcase for the development brand there. And I like, let me ask you all this too as well. Do you like the pay-per-view events, the PLEs, excuse me, where we have NXT standing on its own for the weekend? Or do you like when they group them with the big bundle packages where you've got a SmackDown, maybe an NXT afternoon, and then a Saturday evening or a Sunday for the red or blue main brand? I kind of like to see the young kids, the up-and-comers, have their own platform for a weekend like this where it is all eyes on them.
Yeah, and I think it's very important just for the confidence for a lot of these performers, because you want to have that confidence to say, guess what? I main evented a WWE show and I'm not even on the main roster. Like, it just does so much for just the performer. I also love the fact that the confidence from creative, the confidence from the office, everything rolls into one, and there's belief in the talent, and that belief goes such a long way. You can look at so many performers in the past, and if they don't have that belief from the people telling them it's your time now, then they might not go out there and hit that home run for the company. So I'm with you. I love the fact that they stand alone. I just
Where were they last night?
very spoiled when I get everything.
Well, I think because when you have those big blockbuster weekends, and I've talked about this on air and some other shows, in that I even like when you have AEW and WWE on the same weekend, because I can just dedicate that whole block, those couple of days, to professional wrestling. Instead of having, like, I got to get this weekend in, this weekend in, the next weekend in. I like, boom, give me all that content. But as you mentioned there, Chris, perfect, with the NXT, it might be that safety net. We're in town, the same town with the red and the blue, the big stage. So there's that crutch. We're going to have that audience built in. Mm-hmm. So I like it here. You happen to know where they were yesterday? I didn't look at that.
They were in San Antonio. They were live from the Boeing Center in San Antonio.
That's great. So they're going outside of their norm, outside of where they're usually at here. So when they travel like that to one of those metropolises like that, they have to show they're the draw. There isn't the crutch of, there's another big PLE with the established megastars above the superstars in WWE. This is on you. Can you do this? Are you going to be ready to be elevated to do this on a regular basis? So that's game on. That's pressure. So I like that for the young development stars.
Well, and that's just it. And like, I named the show Iron Cuts Iron for a reason, because if you're not up against a situation that makes you better, you're not going to grow. I remember reading a book as a kid. It was the Hardy Boys book, Exist to Expire. And they said you cannot grow without altering yourself. And I think that is one of the best things that WWE and NXT have done, because in order to grow, yes, WWE has made sure they've had a state-of-the-art performance center, but they're also thrown into the fire just as much as they get an opportunity to hit a cold shower. Why? Because that's what makes these performers better. They make them true professionals. I love the model concept that they have, but I also love the fact that they're not treating them like babies. They're not nursing them every step of the way. They're still putting that accountability on the talents when they go out and perform. They just happen to also make sure they have all the tools to do so.
I would challenge you a little bit there, because I think as they have advanced everything, as you said, we've got the state-of-the-art performance facility, the training center down there, where they can work through everything. They've got their classes, and in WWE's eyes, they do believe that they are giving them all the tools that they need to succeed when the time comes for the select few to move on up to that grand stage. Now, coming up, watching pro wrestling, I go back, I'm mid-40s. I fell in love with this thing around WrestleMania 3. I'm one of those that was drawn in with the slam heard around the world, and I've steadily watched my entire life. So in going back to the late 90s, early 2000s, here in Southwest Ohio, had an awesome opportunity where I caught Ohio Valley Wrestling back then, when they were the PC, the training facility, where we molded the stars that were to come. And so I always look at the current development model in NXT and compare it to that OVW. And right or wrong, I mean, that might be an unfair comparison because you look at the stars that came out of there, but the training and development system was so different. Then they protected and hid those guys. There was limited regional television. Now they're global, which I think there's certainly some major positives, but there is some major drawbacks to that, to maybe expose some things before they can perfect the art, of wrestling, before they actually get to that main stage where they should be seen globally, where they're actually ready to go. And we've seen so many, once they try to make that move, maybe they're not necessarily ready, and they trip and stumble and they're gone before we know it.
And I know I can't argue with what you said, because there's still some elements where you still see it from some of the top guys, like a Braun Breaker, for perfect example. You can tell he outgrew what NXT could do, and he needed to go and face off against the Roman Reigns of the world. He needed to go up against the CM Punks of the world, the Seth Rollins, things like that. I understand. And there's going to be some elements that you get outside of NXT that is just so influential to your development that even NXT can't provide. I 100% agree with that. And as for like that, talking about how different it is, 100%. But I remember being trained in 2004 and then being asked to go to a training school in 2025. And even that is a completely different ball game as well. I think that's just, as you said, the art of wrestling. I think that's the beauty of it, is we're just seeing the evolution of wrestling, and it might not be to everyone's liking. But if we're not changing, how do we expect to become better?
That's interesting that you say. It kind of strikes, really strikes my interest there. What would you say are some of the major differences then from when, from 04 to 05? We're talking a 20-year just flip around.
I think there's a lot of impatience nowadays, whether it's the way you consume, whether it's the way you enjoy. I think there's a lot more impatience to enjoying wrestling than there's been in the older days. I will say older days, because that's not untrue. But in the 80s and the 90s, even the 2000s, there was a lot more focus on the details. And I find nowadays we're finally understanding how much that is. I found that there's a time that was lost. I found in wrestling in the 80s, 90s, they protected a big move. They protected a high spot to where it got you the maximum ovation, the maximum gain. And nowadays you see that in an opening sequence, because, as I say, impatient, I also mix with spoiled. Because nowadays we have seen everything, or pretty close to everything. Whereas back in 1986, you haven't. So I find it very intriguing that fans nowadays still want storytelling, but at the same time, they still want their back and forth. They want their sequences. They still like the moves. So it all comes down to execution in my eyes, which I think has always been a part of wrestling. But I also found the way you enjoy it has completely changed. And the way that wrestlers want to work now aren't always the same as they were 20, 25 years ago. I'm not saying they can't. I'm just saying it's preferred, not always the same.
So what are those major differences, though, pertaining, as you said, to training in 04 versus what you saw in a modern 2024, 2025? I mean, is it accelerated there as well? Or they come in or where maybe where for you it was like, lesson 10 is now lesson 2, or is...
I think a lot of, I think for me personally, if I'm going with my story and just my past, it took me 6 months before I even stepped in a ring. And then when I did, I was an official. I was a referee before I even took a bump in front of a crowd. So there was a lot more protecting. So I was good at something. So when I was on a show, I looked the part from that end. Nowadays, I think there's a lot of time where we want a trial by fire. And they're like, oh yeah, you have the skills to take a bump. You can run the ropes, all that stuff. Okay. Now let's see what you do under pressure. And I think there's just a difference between the way you go from day one to day one in a ring in front of people.
So with the NXT model, we're talking about the TV distribution. We get to see them in class. We're seeing them learn on the fly out there with the cameras rolling like that. Do you think in some ways it does hurt? Comparison like OVW, they had very limited market reach. I was very lucky to get it here in Southwest Ohio. They're just down the road in Louisville. Now they are globally broadcast. Does that kind of hurt in a sense of we're seeing it too early, seeing their faults before they're supposedly ready to come up to that grand stage?
I mean, yes, because I think everyone makes more faults at the beginning of their careers than they do at the end. I think it's really when, like, I'll point this an example. Do you think a lot of people saw more faults from Steve Austin when he was stunning Steve Austin or when he was Stone Cold Steve Austin?
I see, and there are the different dynamics. It took that transition from the good old Southern boy style and stunning Steve, which was such a different character, for than what we got eventually with one that became the greats and a true icon in this industry. You and I were talking before we went on air here about who are those true icons that are going to be the long lasting megastars, and Steve is one of them. Stone Cold's one of those. But they're so different, and we even saw that transition where he had to figure out. Hey, I came from the old boy Southern style wrestling. Now I got to figure out sports entertainment. I have got to get a character that's going to get a hook and a connection. It's no longer about going out there and being one of the best bell to bell moveset rope work guys getting it done in that ring. Especially the injury brought that on. I remember a great interview with Dutch Mantell where he was talking about Steve Austin years and years back when they were traveling, coming out of Texas and all that. And he even asked me, he said, what makes you stunning? What is that? Is it just because, it sounds good with the name? You got the long blonde hair, the rope, like that's not you. That's not, what is that with the character? I think that was a lot of the loss back then. So it's about finding that way. And to me in wrestling, and, there's so many different ways to enjoy wrestling. There's dozens of ways to skin a cat, and none, there's no real right answer. There's no real wrong answer. There's a lot of places in between. But for me, professional wrestling at its purest form, and I believe it to be the greatest form of entertainment that has ever existed. I've been a fan here going on 40-something years. And again, it is the greatest form of entertainment that has ever existed because we have a little bit of everything for everybody. Do you love athleticism? Great athletes. We've got that. Do you love characters, relatable characters involved in storylines that you can live vicariously for? We have that. Do you like comedy? We have it. Do you like drama, romance? Even with the entrances, great music, interaction. If you do it right, we got food and drink. We have everything, something for everybody in professional wrestling. But for me, what really hits is moments and memories. And I get those through characters that connect with the audience and just hit home, get right in your heart, deep down in your soul, storytelling.
Yes. And I agree with you because that's exactly how I'm going to bring this back to how I viewed Deadline last night. What I thought was amazing about Deadline, which we talk about NXT being a developmental, was that it did that. It gave us something for everyone. You wanted fast-paced action, the Iron Survivor matches did that. You want drama, they gave it to you. You want some comedy, well, guess what? You got that with Mr. Iguana going up against Ethan Page. You want pure wrestling, and you want a good story. Tatum Paxley and Izzy Dane hit it out of the park last night in my eyes, and they put on a very, very good character-based driven match. And then on top of that, you got what I thought was a great battle of just who's better in Oba Femi and Ricky Saints. And I thought that opening up the show and giving us that right off the bat might have been one of the greatest decisions that they could have made last night, because at the end of the day, it told us exactly why everyone is fighting the way they're fighting, and that is to be champion, which I think is still to this very day. If you're not in it to be champion, what are you doing here? And I heard that from the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s, the 2010s, and now the 2020s.
Well, it has kind of evolved what that actually means, though. You go back there, the 80s, the 90s, being the champion meant that a company of promotion relied on you to draw. You were the financial top dog for them to put those butts in those seats. Now, take it away, within the Attitude Era, as great as it was, the hottest era that there ever was, when they started hot-shotting titles around where it became more of the prop, it lost a bit of that value. But to me, and I always regularly hear, Rip Rogers 101, he always says, championships are for people that can't get over with character. I see that to a sense, because you need to get over with that character, but we shouldn't completely dismiss, in 2025 especially, dismiss what it means to be a champion. We are giving a final salute here within the next week to one of the other GOATs, the icons, the true icons of this in John Cena. And to be the champ, to be the top guy, meant that much to him. And that says that you just don't want to go out there for that spotlight. You want to go out there to make that company shine. You're ready to do the PR, all of the interviews, travel the globe, be the guy that is sacrificing absolutely everything for the betterment of the promotion and the genre, the sport itself.
Yeah.
One big day, as you mentioned, that championship match last night. I know we come for the Iron Survivor gimmick matches, and they showcase those, I thought, perfectly there with inside the card. The matches, the gimmicks themselves. I'm still not a big fan of duplicating gimmick matches on one show. Another conversation. But yes, this championship bout set a tone for the evening. This is what it's about. Who wants to be, who should be carrying this development brand here, this brand of WWE. I thought there was a big swerve for this thing. I think a lot of people, especially when they added that little stipulation that the winner of this is going to get a match against Cody Rhodes coming up at tonight's main event for the Cena farewell. I think a lot of people immediately dismissed, hey, it's going to be Saints, him and Cody, the two boys are going to go out there and put on a little show. He's going to give his good buddy the rub here, give him the spotlight. And damn, locked in. They go with Obi. And you talk about somebody that I believe is outgrown NXT right now, that is ready for more. Put him on that grand stage. The ruler is ready, baby. I'm now, maybe more than anything next week on Saturday's main event, I'm excited to see the performance and the show that they allow him to give us.
Yeah. And I couldn't agree with you more. I think I was even asked, as our own Chris Best and I did the watch party over on my socials last night. He asked me flat out who I had winning the match, as we do for many predictions as we're watching the wrestlers come to the ring. And I said, if Obafemi is wrestling his last matches in NXT, obviously Ricky Saints is going to go on and face Cody Rhodes. But if their story is only halfway through, just like John Cena was saying on multiple podcasts, that WrestleMania this year was not the final piece of the story with Cody Rhodes. If Obafemi and Ricky Saints' story is not complete, then I don't see why he doesn't win back this championship. And we have an all-out war between two men whose number one desire, as Obafemi wants to be, the ruler. How can you be the ruler if you don't have the crown to run your jungle? But if you're Ricky Saints, how can you walk around with the chip if you can't crack the code that is Obafemi and be the better man who's the best representation of the brand by being number one? So there is so many conflicting stories, but it makes such a great one-on-one. It's very much, in a little sense, that macho Hulk Hogan of being better. Definitely nowhere near the magnitude, but I could tell how they're taking it away from each other. As we do have Chris Best in the comments. Hello, how are you doing? This is the time where, before we go to the next things, I do want to talk about that John Cena tournament. We got to do what we got to do to pay the bills around here, and that is showcase our amazing mobile website in carlcarafel.redbubble.com, as well as talk about our beautiful mobile website, turnbucklestudios.org. So if you have a minute, make sure that you're taking it seriously, go refresh your bevies. If you have to go number 2, you go number 2. But just do it fast. We'll be back in just a little bit time, but enjoy these videos in the process.
The Turnbuckle Studios store is open for you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Get the merch and represent the best from the shows you watch on a weekly basis. Multiple styles to choose from with over 10 products available. Don't get left out and pick up all your favorites today. Find us at carlcarafel.redbubble.com.
A Turnbuckle affiliation program is looking for more people. If you have passion level for pro wrestling, sports, videos games, or something else, then Turnbuckle Studios is the place to be. If you have ever wanted to pursue content creation and want to join our team, then we would love to have you. Check out turnbucklestudios.org or contact us by email today because your future is now, and we want you to tap in.
That's right, everybody. If you want to go to www.turnbucklestudios.org, that is the official website of the Turnbuckle Affiliation Program and Turnbuckle Studios. But if you want to hit a /join after that, then you can go ahead and you can make your claim to how you want to get into podcasting, content creation, all that stuff. If you want to come and help us and be a part of our team, that is your best and most direct way to go. So please, that is once again, turnbucklestudios.org/join. But also, if you want to help rep the team, maybe wear a couple of our logos right on your chest, or maybe you want it on your cell phone, phone cases, all that stuff. I can't keep control of what all they have because I'm old and I forget things. But you want to go to carlcarafel.redbubble.com because that is what you don't want to forget. RBV, you talked earlier about John Cena. You talked earlier about Ohio Valley Wrestling. Who would have thought that in those times where you were enjoying what was perceived to be one of the best draft classes there was with Brock Lesnar, Randy Orton, Shelton Benjamin, but the man that we don't see, but for 1 week, in 6 days, we're going to see him one last time. John Cena's farewell retirement comes to an end this Saturday at Saturday night's main event in Washington, as he goes up against a Ring General Gunther. Take me to this match. What are you thinking? As I want to talk a little bit after that, just about this tournament as well. But your thoughts on John Cena and this retirement tour coming to a close Saturday against Gunther.
Again, thinking back to those OVW, and as you run down that class and all those greats there, it almost gave me goosebumps how spoiled I was to have access to see those before they were the stars. The characters that portrayed some of the classic matches and moments that happened that the world didn't get to see. But I did have the opportunity. And as you said, 23 years in the making. And when you look at those things, Brock Lesnar, Randy Orton, Batista, Cody Rhodes, it goes on and on. Who is going to step up? Who is going to stand out? Back to the very first time that the world got to see him, who was going to demonstrate that ruthless aggression to rise to the absolute top, to be the face that ran the place, that carried it. It was the prototype, John Cena. And everything that he has done, we talk about the phases of WWE. All those successes right now in 2025, they are hitting on cylinders at a level unimaginable. Into the trailblazer that set that path for them financially, global expansion was John Cena as the top superstar. With that, I thank John. I thank John for all those years, everything that he has done. I compare his competitive fire, what he wanted in excellence and demanded from everybody else to rise to that level. I compare that to one other GOAT, Michael Jordan. With that, this last year, this retirement run, since he has announced it, I also compare to Michael Jordan going to the Wizards. We are going to remember all the highlights, all the greatness of the Bulls dynasty, what he did there. But yeah, we had some good moments with Jordan. He had some big games, some things that were like, all right, he still got it. The magic's still there. No pun intended. But but what we have seen, and man, I'm not faulting John at all of this. I think a lot of this was just beyond his control, and being the true professional is that he is, he just rolled with it, made the best of what was being presented to him, given to him, from the just backfired heel turn to the abrupt out of nowhere, we got to correct this, just going baby face, the just, up and out of nowhere, some of the matches, maybe a loss of connect, fell a little bit down here. I'm not a big fan of the tournament itself. I wish we would have had a much more emotional connection for the farewell match. But this has been one of those things where you can be very forgiving, because this run has been a love letter from John Cena to the fans.
Yeah, and that was everything that we heard about just in the match with AJ Styles, and that it was a love letter back to the business, whether or not you saw all the moves from, whether it was from WWF/WWE icons, whether it's from TNA icons, from AJ Styles. Like, we can argue a lot about why and how things were executed, but a lot of the things that we did get were pretty good too. Like, without John Cena's retirement tour, we don't get Punkonomics, which to this day still made me laugh hard. And it was something, like, you talked about those moments, seeing CM Punk come out with the John Cena stuff, and we had those rap battles. We had John Cena cut his version of a pipe bomb and all that. Like, he still accomplished so much in 1 year and in 35 dates. And the impact was so great that it just shows that even if you do things that people don't like, doesn't mean you can't be remembered for stuff that people do like. And it was just crazy to me that, as you said, you weren't a big fan of the heel turn. Not a lot of people were fans of the heel run. But what we did respect are the matches and the quality of matches John Cena's had just since that heel run. That match against Cody Rhodes at SummerSlam, absolutely amazing. The match with Logan Paul, people don't have to like Logan Paul, but it was fantastic. AJ Styles, John Cena, hell, the matches with Dominic Mysterio, and how he was able to put over 6 different people in one night, I think shows you just
There's a
how
lot in that
special
match,
John
especially.
Cena is.
I just don't agree with that. I just thought it just sold everything short. But again, John goes out there and delivers. That's why he's absolutely one of the freaking best that's ever done it. And I love just pacing in so many of those matches. It's not about boom, boom, boom. You got to get everything in, although he's done that at times. He knows how to slow it down, let you kind of just consume, feel what you've watched there. Again, I'm not blaming this run on John. I think he went out there and made the most of it. He's just the ultimate professional. One of the things that did jump out to me, and I recently seen a quote from an interview he did a little bit back, but this run to him, when he came out and cut that thing, said, hey, this is it for me, but I'm going to make it. I'm going to do it the best that I can. He wanted to be there for like 220 dates.
Mm-hmm.
And the company comes back like, we need you for 36 dates. Now I get from them, that's the TKO business model. That's why we've seen them cut house shows, things like that, because less is more dollars for them. So they know if we're giving John 220 times, we're only going to charge this much. But if you're only getting him 36 times, we can charge this much. So that's the TKO business sense. That's where they're at. And they've proven that has been a relatively successful model when it comes to revenue for them. So maybe not 220 dates. I talked about this yesterday on the show. Are they even running 220 dates right now? Because they have cut back.
That question I was going to ask you.
Like it's probably pushing around there, because I know they still do house shows like internationally, and there are some of the big like MSG shows. But man, long gone are the days of when they were running, on the weekends, an A, B, and C, and they're running 350 days a year. Those are long gone. But even if we could have had John for even like 70 dates, because I think that is one of maybe the drawbacks. Take the creative out, because again, we can go back and forth in that all day. There's dozens of ways to skin a cat. But if we could have had more dates with John and let some of these programs, these stories play out a little bit more, a lot of it seems so rushed.
Mhm.
But but I will give it again. In a year, it is hard to do a lot that you want to do for a farewell. And there were so many people that wanted to get involved with John, to have that moment, to, if you will, get that rub, that spotlight. And there was, and I know some people say, well, you know, there's with Randy Orton, CM Punk, they're going back and revisiting those. Well, when you're doing a farewell tour for a band, people are showing up to see your greatest hits.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, they don't want to hear just new music that, you know, that's coming out of the studio. They're there for what they know, and they want to revisit that. That was one of my favorites moments with the retirement tour, was Cena and Orton. And again, that goes all the way back to OVW, and we got it in a unique sense where it was the first time in 23 plus years where Randy was the babyface and John was the heel. So even then we got something different as we went back and played one of those Ultimate Classics.
Yeah, how I have to ask, as someone that like lived like you're from the Ohio area, so you know the Ohio Valley wrestling thing all too well. We saw not only John Cena and Randy Orton, we saw John Cena and Brock Lesnar, and you can have an opinion about that. But at the very end of the day, who would have thought during your time you would have still saw that as a matchup? And again, was it their best match? Subjective. People can have opinions. I don't think so. I'm sure you're going to say no as well, because I don't know many people that liked it.
Again, though, I'm not one of those who gets hung up on movesets. You know, but that match itself, you got to look at what was the purpose there. Now, I did think one thing was funny because they were kind of pointing fingers when they got a little backlash on that, because, you know, you heard like the company like, this was John's idea, and John comes out like, right, that was my idea. But let's be honest, what this thing was. It served its purpose perfectly, because they had kind of shotgun and rushed the jump to the ESPN app. You know, everything that we heard was going to launch at the beginning of 2026. And then suddenly it's like, well, we fulfilled our dates with our deal with Peacock, with NBC on that side. We're going to go ahead and make this move. ESPN's got the app launched. They need content. They're looking at as much of that menu. We're going to make the move. They come up. Obviously it was at one time the PLE name was used for somebody else. I don't nitpick on that. So this is a new concept to modern WWE. WrestlePalooza. We need a huge selling point for this thing. And especially with a crossover with the ESPN audience, who better than John Cena and Brock Lesnar? The most familiar names that look like actual, very familiar to a general audience, pro athletes.
Yeah.
You put them on a marquee, it's going to sell. That was the purpose of that match, not to go out there and, you know, burn down the building with a 7-star, you know, absolute moveset rope work classic. That was about a marquee, and that's what it delivered.
I mean, you didn't want to see a Meltzer driver from the top from Brock Lesnar? I mean,
hey,
what are we doing?
He's having enough trouble with his entrances. You wanted to go up there and start hitting hurricanranas and all that now?
I just hope he was singing Ashes, Ashes, we all fall down as soon as he slipped. That would be the best. But and I mean, you could, again, people can have opinions about Brock Lesnar as much as they want, but what I loved about him, as we just go in a little bit of a tangent, he gets back up, puts his cowboy hat on Braun Breaker, and then he just laughs it off, and it's no big deal. And nobody's going to go up to him and be like, yeah, you fell on your butt. And then he's like, yeah, and I could rip yours off your body. So shut up.
I kind of thought, you know, real quick with that, it's almost like a learning lesson for Braun, you know, like, hey, you're going to be the next badass in this business, but, you know, you got to be humbled at sometimes, because you never know what's going to happen out here.
And like, how ironic is it that just like a week or so later, we have Braun Breaker cutting down one of his better promos, talking about a personal story that happened between him and CM Punk about cutting said promo and how it bothered him to this point. Who's to say down the road we might not get Braun Breaker revisiting that very moment, and that's setting up a giant match between Brock Lesnar and Braun Breaker, and that's going to target, okay, who's now the new badass of WWE? Who is maybe the passing of the torch from one badass to another?
One of those, if you will, passing of the torch, but that's going to be the true one for Braun
Yeah.
Breaker. And hopefully by then they realize, he breaks free from this Breaker nonsense, and we get Braun Steiner, who he actually is. What is the marketable side? What is going to sell? What is truly going to get over? Those are going to be those moments that truly define that young man and how his potential, where he can go inside the business. But back to the Cena aspect here. It's the announcement of the tournament, and what you sort of talk about. There were some things that I said, this does make a little sense. Maybe I will appreciate this a little bit more, but I am still not a big fan of the decision to go with a tournament for this, but I guess it does in a sense because it gets more people involved a little bit with that farewell.
Yeah, and one of the things I loved about this tournament, and again, I try to go and find positives out of things because I'm gonna have to watch it. I'm gonna watch it anyway. So why not find ways where I can enjoy it? And what we got were just in the semifinals, I thought were very intriguing. We can talk about Zack Ryder and Dolph Ziggler doing the one-offs in this tournament and the moments that gave us. Okay. But we got, for the first time, with no story, a babyface versus babyface match in LA Knight and Jey Uso, and then a heel versus heel match with Gunther and Solo Sikoa. And out of those two, I actually was more impressed with the heel versus heel match than I was with the babyface versus babyface match. And over time, I've seen more baby versus baby matches than heel versus heel. And I was very, very well appreciative of the work that not only Gunther did, how smart he worked the thumb of Solo, but also how good Solo looked in a loss, which hasn't happened in a very long time.
Yeah, I like, it is harder to pull off a heel versus heel match than it is a baby versus baby. So let's talk about the baby versus baby. You got Jay taking on, LA Knight. Now, there is some story there, brother. There is some story because those guys for a while have been kind of on that one upspin, kind of blaming the other for, hey, you broke up this pin when I had an opportunity. You stole this moment. So there is that bubbling heat there between those two. I thought that really added the intrigue to that match. There also seems to be, you go listen to the guys that have been there with that tremendous insight. Mr. Stevie Richards, this right here, Turnbuckle Studios, one of the top platforms out there. Mine, the Hamin Media Group, one of the top platforms, arguably the best pro wrestling show out there on YouTube, the Stevie Richards Show. I mean, he does an amazing job. Stevie, a great friend, mentor of mine. He's so much that I've learned from him over the past decade. But as he breaks down on it, there seems to be like some legitimate heat inside of the ring between those two over the last couple of times where they show frustrations. I'm sure your eye has been able to pick that up where they don't like maybe the communication or maybe some missed spots in there as well. That only adds to that. So if you can even watch at that level, that's a little more intrigue to what's going on between those two. I am looking forward to maybe a full-blown program between Jay and LA Knight. But I think, the match that they had there was, if you're looking at the potential of who could have emerged from this tournament, I think a lot of people could have made arguments for either one of those two. So there was intrigue who was going to get that spot in the finals. Obviously, we know now that, LA Knight grabs that there. But on the other side, and again, I think, it shows up where they had maybe cooled down, that they're giving Solo another look. And once they started, after he left the enforcer role and was kind of pushed into that, you're the tribal chief, they pulled back. But in that pullback, it gave him an opportunity, Solo, to start showing character and personality. And I think now, even though, and not everybody has to be elevated or shot to the main event level, I think Solo has a great career there in the mid-card act. I think he's doing great as the leader of My Family Tree. I like where he's at there. And to get this shine, to get this deep into the tournament and go out there that good. But also in it, you say the heel versus heel. Gunther is so dang good at what he does. He sort of borderlines that where he's ready to. The best way to get over as a babyface of professional wrestling is just be a damn good heel. And he's ready to break through that threshold where people are going to start cheering him. And I think, and maybe that ultimate payoff will be no matter what happens in that final match, but going forward, he is going to become one of the people that are most endeared and cheering.
Yeah, and what's very intriguing with Gunther right now is even on SmackDown, he had a segment backstage where before his match with LA Knight, he talked to John Cena and he's like, "You just watch how I beat LA Knight." And he uses this cravat submission that you don't see in WWE. It's very much like Cena's STF or a submission, right? But it's a cravat instead of a crossface. And it was something different that even LA Knight, even if he studied, could not figure out that Gunther does, because that's how good Gunther is. He's a student of the game. And like you said, the ring general is not a gimmick, it's his way of life. And what I thought was interesting in that, it made an honest man out of Gunther. And he's not walking down to the ring with the purpose of saying, I don't like you, I don't like you, I'm better than you, all that stuff. There's not an arrogance like that. It's more of I go in that ring and I show you I'm better. He doesn't always come off as the biggest villain, although he does come off as your biggest challenge. And that's why there's a lot of, he's the final boss. There's always those added things and added narratives. But when it comes down to it, like you said, he's that good. And he is so good, he can bust something new out, and it even shocks the world. And he might be one of a very few class, as John Cena in his WWE tenure has tapped out 4 times, twice to Kurt Angle, once to Chris Jericho, and once to Chris Benoit. Could Gunther be the 4th person ever to make John Cena tap out?
We look at the bracket. I know there's this great conversation throughout the thing. Who could get this opportunity? Is it going to be a young name to go out there and kind of get that shine, get that rub? To me, really, looking at this bracket, studying this thing, when we look back at it, was there really any other option than Gunther? I mean, because to put the heat of the moment, because that's what we want. We want to be emotionally supercharged for this thing, on the edge of our seat. We want that connection. We want to be thrilled, to be excited during this. Gunther's going to deliver that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, where there's other ones you could have got, if it would have been a Jay or an LA Knight, that would have been more about a showmanship, pandering to an audience for pop moments. With Gunther here, we are going to get an absolute classic banger inside of there. He is going to do what John Cena did for the better part of 23 years. Go out there and demand excellence to the elite. I'll say with Joe Burrow here, when we got him back here with the Bengals, elite players elevate everything and everyone around them. We're going to have 2 elite players inside of this match here coming up this Saturday. That's where he is the only option there that's going to be here. And I think it is pretty cool that he just retired Goldberg. Now, are we going to get to see, he's going to get to do that with John Cena? Could this be something that we see for the next 5 years as some of these big names that we've been talking about during our conversation, Chris, from those names from OVW? Could that be Gunther's role here? To be that big final match, because he's going to guarantee to give you that absolute banger on the way out.
Yeah, and my one thing is, a lot of people are gonna go, he's the new Randy Orton with the Legend Killer stuff. Which
it's an easy comparison, but it doesn't need to be just like that, where he's pointing out like, I'm coming to end Legends' careers or take them out. Just so happens that it goes there. And I love that you said it, because the biggest one could be Randy Orton's final match.
Well, and I was going to say, right, we know there's somebody retiring in 2026 by the name of AJ Styles, but at the same time, where I was going to go with, if that is going to be kind of something that he is associated with, you have an easy program between Randy Orton, and it is the past versus the future in the same way, because imitation, sincerest form of flattery, right? So the story writes itself. And that's, I think, something that if I'm a fan of Gunther, that's something I'm craving more and more. I want to see why Gunther is on my screen more. It's not just, he's back, he's in a tournament, he wins. I mean, anybody can do that. But what does Gunther do next? That's the $1 million question, because we know what John Cena on Saturday is going to represent. We know it's a one last time. It's a one and only match. Yes, it's a first time ever between these two, but it is the one and only as well. The question is, what does Gunther do December 14th? What does he do on the Raw on December 15th? What does he do leading in to January 5th on Netflix? What does he do on January 29th for the Royal Rumble? Where is his story towards WrestleMania? That and those are the big questions I want to know for Gunther, because those are things I need to see from Gunther, because these one and dones, I don't think are enough for fans who maybe are being introduced to him right now.
Well, what you need, I love the way you laid that out, brother, because I've been screaming the same sentiment the last couple of shows that I've done here. What does this mean for Gunther going forward? We've already heard the rumblings about championship, main event, WrestleMania plans. We're not hearing anything about Gunther.
Mm-hmm.
But, if you're going to give him this moment, we better have some big plans for him. He is going to be one of your top superstars. And it also, as you laid that out there, brother, when we look at the match itself, this is going to be a big moment. I know you guys here on the Turnbuckle platform, us on the Hamin Media Group platform, we're all planning, separate together, whatever that case might be, to get together to watch this thing as fans, to enjoy that moment. Celebrate not just John Cena, but professional wrestling for the last quarter century and what he's meant to it. We're talking about potentials who could have been in this spot. Why Gunther is perfect for this spot. Anyone else here, you get a lot. It's going to be highly supercharged emotionally. Anyone else out there might have cracked and marked a little bit in that moment. You're going to get the utmost extreme levels of professionalism, and that you feel that this is real. This is legit from Gunther. He's going to go out there, serious face the entire time, to take care of business the way that he takes care of business. That's really what we're going to get. I'm expecting, man, this thing might have an energy because Gunther is so good. This might look like the main event scene from Rocky IV. With the Russian, how serious and how intense he is on that side of the ring, and then all the pomp and circumstance there for Rocky, who eventually wins that crowd over. But back to it, what you said, man, what happens December 14th and into Riyadh season Rumble, and then back to Vegas, double or nothing style for WrestleMania?
Yeah. And I'm always in that mindset where, okay, we know where we're heading, but is this just a stop or is this the destination? Those are two completely different answers. But I mean, we have cruised through 54 minutes right now, so I need to let everybody know the destination that is Turnbuckle Studios from a weekly standpoint. So please check out our weekly calendar before we do say, hey, there's a lot of football to watch and we got to get to it. So come check this out, and then we'll close off this week. So yeah, just bear with us.
Turnbuckle Studios and the Turnbuckle Affiliation Program bring you the week of streams. Monday nights you get the Locker Room Breakdown at 7 p.m. Eastern, followed by the Raw Patrol at 8 p.m. Eastern. Tuesday brings you the flagship show, Turnbuckle Talk, at 8:05 p.m. Eastern. Wednesday we play games with the PlayStation Showcase at 8 p.m. Eastern. Thursday we go TNA when we brace for Impact at 7:55 p.m. Eastern. Friday we secure all details as we answer the call for the SmackDown security detail at 8 p.m. Eastern. The weekend brings you Saturday Night Gaming at 8 p.m. Eastern. On Sundays be sure to catch the Chris Parrish podcast at 12:15 p.m. Eastern, followed by the Boar's Nest at 8 p.m. Eastern. Be part of the shows and join the chat every day.
Awesome stuff. And I do want to let everybody know on a programming note that the one show you don't see is the PLE Patrol. That's a show that you'll be able to watch this Saturday. We know Saturday night's main event, it's not a PLE. So we don't need you to be like in our comments saying, you guys are stupid. What are you doing? We're aware.
Oh, geez.
But we also, a lot of us live in Canada.
There's
and we
something
don't get
people nitpick
Peacock.
about.
We don't watch WWE on television or any sort of cable shows. We all watch it on Netflix and YouTube. So that is where we're going to watch it. It's just a reason to come together and watch some good old WWE.
Hey, how do you
Who's
feel
gonna
about that
fault
real quick,
this one?
Chris? Oh, sorry. I'm just going to ask how you feel about that with, I know you guys are international. You guys get the Netflix feed, but here domestically in the States, the Peacock deal coming to an end. They're removing all of that library content here.
Mhm.
A lot of people here are upset, but are they shifting all of that to the YouTube Classics channel now?
Oh, I don't have an answer on that. I don't know. My assumption is we're going to see YouTube pick up on a lot of this stuff. I wonder if Netflix is going to even expand their library with WWE content as well. I don't know. I'm wondering if this is just up for a bidding sale now, to be quite honest. I could not tell you. This is stuff that I'm curious too. And I think up until the deal with Peacock officially expires, I think we're going to have a whole different issue to talk about. And that's something that I can't wait to really dive deep in.
Yeah, a lot of the business moves are, was what interests me there. So it's going to be very, very interesting to see which direction. A lot of people are like, "Oh, it's so much better when I hit the WWE Network." Well, financially, business-wise, it didn't make as much sense for the company. There's a lot more revenue available within distribution of all that content they got. But man, they've got an incredible library that needs to be shared with the world.
Oh, I could not agree with more. I was even saying last night on the watch party, I miss the WWE Network. It was just a fantastic idea and just a great thing to watch. But we do have to kind of cut it as we are nearing the end. I do want to let everybody know that this was episode 106 of the Chris Parrish podcast, Iron Cuts Iron. But we talk about what's happening next. And let me tell you, then next week, we got episode 107, Last Time, No More. We will talk a little bit about what it is like on the first day of John Cena no longer being an active in-ring competitor. It's crazy to think that's only 7 days away. RBV, I do want to take this time to say thank you. Let everybody know what you have coming up and where the good people can find you.
Well, I do want to thank you. I do want to put over, I know you guys have the commercial running there, looking for content creators, anybody out there that's interesting to get in with the podcast game. If you've had experience, maybe you're novice at it, the crew here at Turnbuckle Studios, I go way back, almost a decade with Carl, and getting to know the crew that he has put together here, man. You talk about top-notch professionals. You want to get in the game, these are the guys to cut your teeth with. To get inside, get the distribution. You already got a great built-in, very knowledgeable, hungry audience. So consider it there if you're interested. These guys are freaking awesome. Chris, thank you for this, man. I was looking forward to it all week. This is the kind of shows that I like doing. The real deal conversations, just shooting from the hip. Two guys with great passion, insight, been involved in the business, but getting together to kind of just open air, just shoot it out. Baby. And that's what it's about. So again, thank you so much. Hopefully we get to do it again. I can have you over on our platform as well. Speaking of our platform, my platform, I encourage everybody out there. You're here on YouTube. Head on over. Hamin Media Group. That's Hamin. Hamin Media Group. Right here on YouTube. Smash that subscribe button, ring that bell, get those alerts. We also have 7 days of original content, multiple shows each day. The finest in pro wrestling punditry. Always a great time there. Check us out again, the Hamin Media Group here on YouTube. Give us a like, hit that bell for the alerts. We greatly, greatly appreciate it.
Yes, and a lot of it, we have to emphasize so much too, just how important it is to hit all those buttons, hit those subscribes, hit those notification bell buttons. They really do help the channel and really help us grow. So as content creators, as people who put out content, we thank every single one of you who does that. RVV, once again, thank you. And it's just not a if, it'll be a when you come back on, we will do this. I'd be honored to join and do some stuff with you as well outside of this channel. But in time, we must say goodbye and see you next week to the good old audience. So it's very important we let everybody know that from me to you, I want you to be happy and be healthy, because at the end of the day, you matter. Have a good rest of your Sunday, and I'll see you next week.
Rip through the clouds, faster, catch us from falling close to